instead of just making a time-lapse drawing like I normally do with these bigger projects, I figured it'd be fun to show you the things that I changed from the old one, which is on the left, to the new one that's on the right. So other than adding the new heroes that have come out, because the one on the left, I did it the last time I worked on it. When I looked at it, it looked like late 2017. So it's been, let's say, give or take 5 years since I've worked on this, since I've touched this drawing at all. And I take this one on the left. I would take prints of it to conventions and have it up on the walls and stuff, and I would always look at it and be like, oh, if I ever went back, I would change this, I would change that. So now that some time has passed, I was like, you know what? With Overwatch 2 just coming out, there's a definitive amount of Overwatch 1 characters, and I was just like, all right, we're just gonna add everybody, and this drawing will finally be done. It'll be done, right? So other than adding all the new heroes, which let's go over all the new ones now. As you see, I added Sigma and Echo up top. Really like how the line work on him came out. Crazy amount of detail. And we'll get into that in a little bit about the detail in here. And the amount of detail per character actually played a big part as to some of the decisions that I made when it came to coloring. We added Echo up top, and you can see over here in the old one, they're not there because they hadn't been released yet. Baptiste. I love how Baptiste came out. I am really happy with how this one came out. By the way, I in the old version here, when I was doing shapes, I was using assisted tools because I did do this one in Photoshop, and the cleanup job and the new characters, I use Clip Studio Paint. So when I was using Photoshop in the old one, I was using a lot of the assisted tools, like the ellipsis tools, and then I would use like things to make straight lines. Everything here on these new characters, freehanded. So it goes to show how much line control I've developed over just the past like 5 years since we last worked on this. We have Wrecking Ball over here. Especially with Wrecking Ball, I used one assisted circle. All right, I just used one. I used one assisted circle, right, for this right here. But then everything else was freehanded. So, there's just like something to the imperfection of freehanded work that I think looks better than when it's too perfect like these are over here. Whoops. We added Bob and Ashe. Really like how these came out. What else did we add? People bugging me about this damn bird, man. Birdman. People bugging me about this bird for years. There, you happy? Now everyone can leave me alone about it. And I think that's all we had to add hero-wise. I think that's it, yeah. So, all right, so those are the characters that we added. Now I'm going to go over all the changes that I made to the existing characters. So let's go ahead and just start out with Tracer, since Tracer's up front. So I did adjust Tracer's face. I found that her eyes, her face shape, even her smile, there's something always a little bit off. It wasn't bad, but it was always something a little bit off. Let me widen this out a little bit. Get a little bit more space here. There we go. So I had it going like outwards. Let me use a thicker brush. I had it going like outwards here for, I think that's just how I drew eyes at the time. But I rounded out her eyes a little bit more. I think it looks better. And because I did that, I had to change the shape of this. See her smile here? She had like big old buck teeth in the front, and you couldn't see the bottom teeth. I don't like how that looks, so I adjusted it so you could see the top and the bottom of her teeth, and that just looks better, right? Doesn't that look That look nicer. And you'll notice I use a lot of, on the old one, I use a lot of this. There's a really strong color dodge rim light on everything. And that's just kind of what I did at the time because I'm not gonna lie, I kind of used it to hide um, little, not imperfections. I used it to hide stuff, you know? Like I was just like, all right, well, I find a lot of artists probably do that now, where it's like, oh, well, I don't know if this is right, this is wrong. I'm just gonna use a lot of gradients, a lot of really strong rim lights, and really oversaturated colors to kind of hide my mistakes. And that's what I was doing with the old one. See, with the new one, I don't even have a shading layer. All of it is flat color. And the reason that I chose to go flat color instead of even having like a single cell shaded layer on here is because I'm not hiding anything anymore. I actually want to show off my line work. Specifically in this drawing, look at the detail I put into all of the armor, all of the mechanics in here. And it's like the more shading you add to something, the more you will push that line art away. You push it into the background. Whoops. The more you'll push that stuff into the background. So we're still on Tracer, right? With Tracer, other than changing her face, I actually made her rump a little bit bigger. Yeah, I made her butt a little bit bigger. And it's like you couldn't see, you could only see, oh, god damn it, come on. You can only see like one cheek right here, right? But I made it so that you could see both because like the way her body is tilted, you should actually be able to see both sides. And then I must have, you see this area right here that's empty under her arm? I must have just missed that because there's no way that there's nothing there. So I went ahead and just filled it in right here with the jacket, right? A cultured change, absolutely. And then I extended her leg because, yeah, it's in a 5-point perspective, but her leg would still be visible down here. You know what I mean? So I added that leg, or I extended her leg down there. Other than that, I got rid of all of these effects, like these glowing effects. See, they're just solid colors now. I'm not gonna lie, one of my biggest influences when it came to the changes that I chose to make here was I have the original visual source book for Overwatch 1. If you look, I don't know who here has this book, but you can Google it. The cover artwork, which I don't know who did the cover artwork to this, it's very inspired by this because I look at the designs and the detail of Overwatch characters, and I look at this cover, and this cover you can't see it, I guess, but like there's a lot of heavy black line art and a lot of spot blacks going on, and this just flat colors, just flat colors. So I was really very inspired by this right here to go this direction with this drawing. And you can see where I added some spot blacks here. You see it's all over. Like when you zoom out, you can't really tell how much spot blackage is going on in this drawing. But if I were to turn it off, which I think I have the layer here to turn off. No, I don't. I actually merged it. Anyway, all I'm saying is if I didn't have all these spot blacks everywhere, you would totally be able to notice that the drawing would look a lot less dynamic. But it's in there, and maybe you can't tell where they are, but they're making a difference. It's one of those you may not notice it, but your brain notices it kind of things. Thickening up the line art, especially. So like you could see little areas here. Because I the first version I did in Photoshop, this one I did in Clip Studio Paint. And when I did Photoshop, I just used a hard round brush, and I didn't use any line weight variations. Plus, it being black lines, I think just looks way better. Let's go ahead and move upwards. There wasn't actually that much to change with him, other than like cleaning up his line art, fixing his colors or his values, and then adding in some spot blacks. So like little sections like underneath here. Look how much better it looks because you don't really need to communicate what's underneath that armor right there, right? So it's just like, what? Why? What is this right here? It's just nothing. There's nothing right here. Let's move on to Monsieur Winston. heavy spot black area right here on the gun because it's the underside of the gun, which should be getting almost no light. There was actually a period of time where I had it completely black, but I was like, I left the yellow sections here yellow because I was like, I put too much work into these fucking little diamond sections. I'm not gonna erase. I'm not gonna block them out. Sombra. Oh, Jesus Christ. All right, let's fucking get to this monstrosity right now. All right. I basically had to reconstruct the entire face. And I think at the time, my issue was the angle of the face. I think I couldn't do that 3/4 from the bottom angle, which I think we'll see in a couple of other characters coming up as well. Yeah, I think I redid the whole face. I think I kept the nose. No, I redid the whole thing. I kept her mouth a little. Yeah, I kept her mouth. But you see, this I believe the ear was sitting about. I believe the ear was sitting about this far out. So you had all this space here that you could see over there, and then her eyebrow went like all the way out here. So we had this massive space, which is why it was hard to get that chin to look right. But yeah, like you said, I mean, I would disagree. I don't even think the original one even looks good. But you know, the new one not only looks better, but it actually looks more like her, right? So yeah, so you see this this coat area here, right? Now in the old one it looked like this, right? And there's just that negative space between them. This is just me. This has not. There's no like art rule that I read anywhere that you know this comes from. This is just me. Any chance I have to put something behind something else to kind of like well, how do you say it, to create more of like a miniature foreground, miniature background, because when it's just, I don't know, is it just me? You know what I'm talking about? When it's just like this and they're not touching each other. That's cool, but look at how much more interactive it looks when you know that this goes all the way to the back. I think when I was doing this, I almost considered having it go all the way out to the side like that. Coming out the other end like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, look how much of a difference it makes. It's just kind of like, it's all interacting with each other a little bit more. Those are just little things that bother me. Yeah, so I just wanted to give a little bit of expression in the face rather than just have like an angry frog mouth. Weapon wise, I didn't need to change anything. The perspective on everything was on point here. And then we did add Baptiste, which I'm really happy with how Baptiste came out. Soldier Boy didn't need too much changing either, other than cleaning up some line art and balancing the values, which yeah, not too much change there. Oh yeah, and then Wrecking Ball. So you can see where I added the spot blacks to the mechanical parts of the legs, and I don't know if you could tell, but this is really fucking dark right here. Like if you hit this onto the value scale, it's like a fucking like 8 or 9. That's how dark it is. Like it's like really dark. So I balanced it out here, and you can see how much more it pops. It just this it's blander, but because it's up against black, I feel like it pops out a little bit more, even if it's not quite as aggressive with the blue. I didn't want to redraw his whole face, so I just I think I squished it a little bit, changed the eye shape, changed the facial expression. The chin is actually a completely different shape. The neck is a totally different width. I think in the old one, I think the neck came out like right here, and then like right here. Yeah. So I thickened it up by giving him an actual like an Adam's apple, and then just like the arm musculature. I mean, we'll give our boy just a little bit of muscles, right? So you can, on the old one, I had just was using like that anime look, that really smooth line anime look. But on the new one, I just gave him just a little bit of just a little bit of work in there. Give him a little bit of muscle. it reads better as a print. I was gonna get into that. I was gonna get into that at the end, but if you want to start talking about that now, yeah. So there's another thing where you have to remember I'm making these with the intention of having them sold as prints, right? So I display my artwork at conventions. And one of the things you need to consider when doing artwork specifically for that purpose is how is this going to read as a poster at your display when people are walking by, right? And you're just like, this is kind of cool, the one on the left, but look at how much more aggressive the one on the right is. Ned says, I like the comic book-esque feeling. It really shows the skill it takes to make the weapons and mechanisms square and true. Yeah. We do have... We have a shit ton of detail in the guns, in everything. And it's like, as I added colors and like the shading and the gradients and the rim light, it washed all that detail out. To the point where you can't even see it anymore. What was the fucking point of any of that, right? There's this other thing that I was talking about with my wife where it's like I don't want everything that I produce to look exactly the same. Where it's like rough draft, line art, local colors. If you're gonna cell shade it, pick your shading, and then maybe put a little gradients for the lighting, and then a rim light. Like that's just like the sequence that almost fucking everyone goes through all the time, right? And I'm just like, why don't you just do that over and over and over? Like, this one will look so much different from the other big projects that I have. And I think that's part of the fun of it. You don't want it to look exactly like the League of Legends piece. I don't want it to look exactly like the Dragon Ball piece. So getting that more comic book style is actually, one, I think it looks better, but two, I think it's more fun because we get to do something different. All right, you want to get to the first what the fuck? All right. All right, so see this little munchkin, this Reaper? All right, look at this. We gave him like real legs. I gave him like real legs and feet. Those clown feet. At the time, I was so focused on the perspective, right? I was just like, and again, so we're talking about perspective here. I was so focused on, because by the time you're at the top of the drawing here, you know, this is based in roughly a 5-point perspective. I didn't use the grid like 100%, but I use it as like a guideline, right? So by the time you get up to Reaper up top, you should be getting this motion for everything. You should be seeing things from underneath, which is why, you know, instead of having the armband straight or downwards, it's upwards like this because you're looking up at them. That's where all that comes in, right? That's why everything has that shape to it. Even in the old one, I kind of had that because you're looking up at them. However, look at their feet. I was so focused on the perspective. I was just like, well, if the perspective is that aggressive, then you should be able to see the bottom of his feet, right? Like that. You know what I'm talking about? And at the time, you know, I just couldn't. This was cleaning this up was actually a lot of fun because I've been staring at this drawing for years, talking to myself about the things that I would love to clean up one day, and I was just fuck it, let's just do it, let's get it over with. And now I don't ever have to update this drawing ever again because now Overwatch 1 is done and we have everything. So that's what happened with the old one. I was just so focused on making sure the perspective was on point that I forgot to like make it look good, you know. So got long gone are these clown feet. I actually extended his legs in general. So these are actually sitting probably like this much lower, the knees. You know, then we actually have the full legs. Yeah. Talk about spot blacks. The inside of Reaper's entire cape is just black versus look at it over here on the left. You know, like, do you see the difference about how much the colors pop? I would argue that even though there's no gradients and it's just flat colors on the right side, I would argue that the colors are popping out a lot more just because of how aggressive the blacks are on Reaper. Yeah, so fixing his clown feet was always high on my high on my priority list. Um okay. I know she's supposed to be old, but I made her like too old. Whoops. So with this one, it was just the face needed some adjusting, and then the hair just needed a little bit of adjusting because I don't know, the hair looks really weird here. Like she got electrocuted. So I was just like, let's make it a little smoother. And then you see the line work is a lot heavier. The black line art is a lot heavier. But other than that, I think everything else here was fine. Same thing with the underneath the coat blacks, right? Yeah, I had to really resist the urge to completely redraw the whole thing. Like as I went over, as I went through it, I was just like, well, if I just erase the entire character, I bet I can do it better. And I was just like, no, fuck all that. That's way too much work. We're gonna talk about my boy over here. So you look at the old one, right? This was the main thing that I needed to fix, right? In the old one, his head was sitting like right here, which doesn't make any sense. I pushed it back so you could see it close this little gap right here, right here. I actually, I shift, I picked up his head, I shifted it back over here, so now it lines up more with the spine. Look at how much better it looks. Just like his chest is puffed out a lot more. He just looks stronger, right? All I did was move his head back, and like look at how much more his chest is like sticking out because it's lined up with his spine now. And the old one, he was like right here, right there. Yes. So in the old one, I had that atmospheric distortion, and I had him in the background, and he's very very much in the background in the old one, and it was kind of weird because he's the only character that I applied an atmospheric distortion to, and I was just like, that's kind of weird, right? Um, but in the new one, he's very much a character in the front. This next one, Symmetra gave me mad problems the first time around, gave me mad problems during the cleanup job. So I'm still like 70% happy with how the rework came out. But I did the best with what I had to work with without having to redraw the whole thing. She was looking very flat on the old one, and I don't mean like titty flat. I mean like she didn't have any volume. So I fixed a lot of that. I feel like she definitely is showing a lot more volume in the new one. Um, the armor I kept the same. Oh, here is the biggest part. I extended her. If you could see in the old one, her knee was like, what was it? Her knee is like right here. I went ahead and extended it like way further. Still like 70% on the face, but I think it looks better than the old one. And I think that's it. I like the hard outline that showed up around her visor. Let's switch over. Okay, we got another fun one. It's another one of those head spine placement things, right? In the old one, her head actually sat. You can see it sits above her shoulder, like over here, right? So I actually did the same thing I did with Ryan, where I lifted it up and moved her head back a bit. So now it lines up a little bit better with the spine. Other than that, I didn't really do any changes to her design other than, again, same thing with the line art and the spot blacks. But I've always known that the head was always sitting just a little too far in front, because that would mean that her neck is like, it's like that. You know what I'm talking about? The black in her shoe. Yes. I could have redrawn. I actually had a version of it where I actually whoops. God damn it. I'm not used to using pure ref, so it's throwing me off. I actually had a version of this the other day where I actually got rid of this whole thing, and I had her leg come out almost like this. It was more or less like that. So I had actually drawn a whole thing like that. Oh yeah, I don't think we've looked at the finished Bob Nash yet. the reason I added Bob, and we actually had a discussion about this during the process, where I was just like, do we want to put both of them or just Ashe? And to me, it's that thing where, okay, I'm gonna be walking around, I'm gonna be traveling and selling prints of this at conventions. The last thing that I need to be hearing every fucking weekend is someone being like, "Oh, that's cool, Ashe. Where's Bob go?" You know, like they're gonna say that, like they're gonna fucking bother me about it. So I was just like, I'm gonna make my life a lot easier. I'd rather just draw him in there and get it over with. You know, I'm not gonna lie, that's the only thing that motivated me to to draw him in there. But it's the interior. It's the interior here that I really, really needed to fix. Like, Jesus fucking Christ, like look at the difference here. All right, so in the old one, I could not get this pose down. This pose where you have the body. Let's pick a different color. Let's pick a different color. I could not get this pose right here. Where she's like leaning backwards. I could not get that pose looking right in the old one. So instead, if you see the old one, she's just like sitting upright, and then her body just vanishes. And the armor up front here, see it right here? It's like there's like no space. You see in the new one, you can tell that there's space between her and this piece right here, the backside of this piece right here, because there's volume. There's space there now, right? And the old one, I didn't have that because I couldn't do it. Like I just didn't. I remember hammering away at that drawing, and I just couldn't get it to look right. So I did what everyone does, and I just put a bunch of fucking crazy green highlights and gradients, and I hid everything because I was like, well, if I put enough lighting everywhere, no one's gonna fucking notice, right? And that's, you know, and like the overall structure of like, see this area here and then like the area here, like just like the overall structure, I couldn't get it to look right. Again, it was a perspective problem. I couldn't get the volume of the I couldn't get it to look like there was like a space inside of the machine, you know. Same thing here. The see the glass in the front is like so flat, like it's sitting like that. Doesn't look comfortable for a human, but that's how she sits in it, so that's how she lays down in it, yeah. Um versus the new one, there's very much like a bubble space to like a bubble shape to it. The old one, it looked like a fucking windscreen just down, you know. And then in facial structure issues. Less is more, as in you know, the phrase is line economy. You want to get as much information across with as least lines as possible. And it's a little bit more anime look because that's just how I draw things now. But there's way less detail in the new one, but there's so much more information, and it's much more readable, and the expression's better, everything. Like, anyway, this one was one of the few times where, God fucking damn it, pure ref, come on. This was one of the few, I think the only one, where I completely erased the old character. Better volume in the hair too. Yeah, yeah, right? It's very puffy, isn't it? I think this is the only one where I was just like, fuck this. I'm just going to erase this whole middle section and just start from scratch. So I'm very happy with how that came out. And again, with the hands, I know that she has some like fucking Mickey Mouse cartoon hands now, but like it looks a lot more like she's grasping than this old one. This old one, she's just like, I'm just holding on to these, you know, whatever. No, this new one, she's just like, she's grabbing onto them. She's like controlling it, you know. Okay, so there was just a little bit of cleanup job to do on this one. First thing is, see the chest plate on the left side, how far it goes? It almost went all the way out here. Let's pick a different color. It went like all the way out here. So one, not only was the left breastplate, not only was the left breastplate like way too big. It just um it just didn't look right. Like proportion wise it was fine, but for some reason the plate was so far out. So I brought the plate in and then I showed the underside or the side part where the arm comes out, and look how much better that looks, right? Very boob-like. And that comes from that all that the only thing that I changed in that area, honestly, I didn't change anything on the left side. All I did was I shortened this. That's it. Look how much of a difference that made. That's it. The leg, I swear to God, yeah, see the old leg, there was like no pelvic area like at all, right? It was just straight. It was just like straight leg, you know. So without having to redraw the whole thing, what I decided to do was I brought it down really far where I can add, you know, a little bit of musculature down, or a little bit of butt here, and then the leg. So I thickened it up so that it actually looks like he has, you know, a pelvis now. Let's go to Brigitte. This one I'm very happy with the rework on this one. Okay, so I can pretty much remember everything we changed here. Hopefully I don't skip over anything. Okay, so first of all, don't do it. Okay. Okay. Sorry. First off, her hairline. Her hairline went like all the way up here. And that has always bothered me. And I know her hair is being, you know, swept back, but it just didn't look good. So I went ahead and lowered her hairline just a little bit. Let's go ahead and compare the hand. In the old one, first off, there's a tangent right there, which Jesus fucking Christ, we don't do that anymore, right? So there's that thing we were talking about earlier where if you could put something in front of something else, you should do that. So like I didn't want her hand just floating. I want her hand to cover part of her torso. And because the arm, the hand, or the forearm here is so stubby, look how short that is. I decided to actually move it out, down, and then to the right a little bit. And then I added quite a bit more forearm, but it is foreshortened. So, I mean, you don't want to add too much, but it doesn't look as, though at the tangent. You may not know, but I know, right? So I moved the arm down. I moved the hand down. I actually brought the pinky up a little bit. See this old one? Pinky's just, it's fine, but I was like, look, I'm already adjusting things. So I put the pinky where it needed to be. Oh, well, we're just talking about construction of everything in general. Let's get to the body. Let's start up with the neck and move our way down. You see the old one? It's just like a bunch of nonsense up here because in my brain, I couldn't visualize because I couldn't find good reference pictures. So I couldn't visualize what the armor around the neck would look like. It's simple. It's just this right here. It's just that shape. But I couldn't figure that out at the time. So now we have, you know, that like almost was it almost like a big collar with a hole in it, right? So this was actually pointing out like way too far before. So I remember I had actually shortened it a little bit. I brought it in so that's more round instead of being so like pointy here. Made everything a lot more round rather than being sharp. And then stop it. And then for the body, if you see here, it actually goes in. Now, if she was not wearing heavy armor, then yeah, that would actually make sense that it would start to curve in right here. But because she's wearing heavy armor, I decided to expand it a little bit and have it go out. I brought everything out just a little bit from the old one. Give her a little bit more like body mass. And then I had her leg come down. And I think I had that over here too. But on her left leg, our right side, her leg was going outwards before. Like I had it going out. I went ahead and just brought it down like that. All right, we'll get to Road right here. I'm still like 70% on him. But you know, I did this. I freehanded this whole chain. What a fucking I don't know if I would do that these days. Old version, like old me, you know, we'll draw an entire chain like that by hand. Hours of work. I don't know about new me. There wasn't too much to change other than, you see here on the leg, because it's foreshortened so much, I added this little bit bob here, show a little bit more of the top of the shoe instead of just being straight underneath it. You know, because this section should really just be like that. But I think everything else remains pretty unchanged with him, especially him and Junkrat. Very, very much left unchanged. Just kind of clean him up a little bit. Redid the like the soot on his skin. First off, fixing the colors helped a lot. Second, because we're drawing him in a bit of a like a top-down perspective, he was a little too narrow here, and you could see it on the left side here. So the solution to that was I just brought the belt around a little bit more. And so I did widen this out just a little bit, because it was just like it was a little too narrow before. So I think I added this section right here, right? And look how much of a difference that makes. I added a little bit over here, just to show that the cloth continues to move, continues on underneath here. All the detail in the tattoo, that's all hand done, by the way. So just like all the details in the tattoo, that's I wanted to I actually like duplicated the line art to it multiple times so that I can get it to darken up the lines so that we can see the details more. That's mainly just because I put a lot of time into it and I didn't want to fucking lose all the detail I put into the tattoo. I just did a minor perspective shift here on the oh, wait till we get to Widow, I swear to God. Right here. Where in the old one it was like that. But because it's closer to the center of the image, you really shouldn't be seeing too much of the side of this right here. So that's why that was a small shift in the perspective. So I have fixed his rear end, bubbled it up a little bit. I know for a fact I lengthened his leg just a little bit. I think in this section right here. I adjusted the colors because I know that his body armor is different from like his arm and chest armor. There's also the little things like in the arms here. I just was just like, for some reason back then I was just like, circles, that's fine. But it's not circles, it's a structure. There's something in there, right? And I actually adjusted the size of his head because he kind of looks like a bobblehead character here, right? So while it could still be a little smaller than what I have, I brought in the head quite a bit. I think the original head went like, I want to say it went like this far out. You know, it was pretty big, but I shaved a lot of it off. So they didn't look like a fucking Funko Pop. Okay, here's another one that I'm really happy with. Again, I'm like 80% on this cleanup job, but and it wasn't that the one on the left was bad. It just didn't look like Widow. You know? So boy, what did I do? I brought this in over here. Let me pick a different color. I brought it in over here. I know I lengthened this leg over here. I think it was right here I added more. I did change her right arm. Yeah. The problem is with the angle the gun was sitting. If I had to choose, if I could redo the entire thing, I would have her gun more foreshortened upwards like this. Or maybe not fully at this, but like not fully down like this. I would have tilted it up a little bit. But because this is where the gun was and I wasn't about to redraw the whole thing, I was really stuck with the angle that her right, our left arm could be at. So I did redraw that whole arm there, and I think it looks better, as good as it's gonna get. right? But the thing that made, and I increased her bust size, but um, the thing that made her look weird here was the facial structure. And I went back and forth redrawing this face so many times, and I eventually just was like, all right, look, one, the head was too big. Again, bobblehead character, proportions were off. So I redrew the armor around the head, and I made it taller, and I gave it more like volume. Because on this one, it's almost like there's volume to it, but it's almost like it's going inside her skull. This one, I'm having it protrude out more. And then I brought these bits on the sides closer in here. And then I gave her like a lot more like dastardly looking eyes, like man, you know. And that worked. And then again, I lengthened and sharpened her jaw because that's what that character looks like. Now, one thing that has always bothered me over the years since I did this, the original version of this drawing, when I looked at her, I was just like, that's cool. But for the sake of the drawing, those wings needed to be way bigger. Those wings needed to be way bigger. Look at how far out they go now. They go all the way to D.Va on the new one. They reach hella far. And I think that looks like when you look at a zoomed out version of the drawing, look at how good that looks to kind of frame everything. Like it's the center of the drawing. It was just so like, you know. Anyway, that is one of the ones that I needed to fix. That's one of the things I absolutely needed to fix on her. And we're gonna talk about one last thing. So you guys, those are all the little changes that I made. Oh, here, the background. So with all of my big character projects, I use this tan background on everything, and I drop it, and I use the same color on all of them. And I had it here in the old Overwatch drawing. But, you know, I'm getting to a place where I'm just like, I want to start experimenting. I don't, like we talked about earlier, I don't want all my shit to just be off an assembly line. Like, if I were going to do that, then I'll just do, like, single character drawings of, like, popular anime characters and then draw them all in this exact same style. And again, that's totally cool. I used to do that. But I'm at a point where I'm just like, look, man, I want everything to fucking look the same. It's boring. Comes off an assembly line. Boring, right? So, you see the background. The very center of the background has that same tan look to it. So when you have it up on the wall with a bunch of the other ones, I mean, it'll look like it comes from the same set. But now we're doing something a little bit more fun. You know, there's just a slight, very slight gradation in the background, and I think that adds a lot. And another reason we're going all in on the lines, you see the background here, I added a really thin black line. Hey! Dogs, man. I added a really thin black line, right? There's this part of me that was just like, if I'm going to do another square background, I think it will just look better if it had that line on it. I can't explain why, but I was just like, visually, because we're communicating everything in this drawing with lines instead of contours, you know, contours as in like, we're not using gradations, we're using lines to communicate everything. I was just like, well, it almost feels like it fits. And I can't explain what it is, but my brain automatically was just like, nah, dog, you just gotta put a fucking thin outline around it, it's gonna work. And when I was talking to myself, I was like, oh, why is that gonna work? Like, nah, don't worry about it, it'll work. Yeah. Now I need to show you something. You see the last thing I want to talk about is the most satisfying thing of this drawing. You see the beam, Tracer's beam, her like her after image. Hold on, let me pull this up real quick. So the initial sketch to this drawing I did 4/15/2017. The very, very first like rough draft that I did for this sketch. Right? 4/15/2017. I had, you can see it here. I had the beam fucking, and I've played around with so many different during the redraw, I played around with so many different ways of having the energy, her beam like fly around the screen, right? But I came to the conclusion that something simple like this, for composition purposes, is the best way to go. But I couldn't get it to work on the older version because I don't know, maybe I wasn't good with composition. I wasn't good with making things read right. I didn't know what I was doing, so I was just kind of like, I'm just not gonna put it in, right? I just not gonna put it in, whatever. So when I did the redraw, I was just like, finally, 5 years later, 6 years later, we're gonna fucking do it. We're gonna add it in. So to me, just staring at the old draft of it when I was prepping for the redraw or the cleanup job, I was just like, oh, that's gonna be super satisfying to put that in there. And even that, I put a thin black outline on it. And look at how much it kind of just fits with everything. Now, in regards to composition, readability, in my brain, we naturally read. The when I think about composition, for me, one of the things I think about is, you know, how the audience reads it. Naturally, no. Naturally, you'll start reading from the top left, right? And then you're gonna go like this. You'll see that beam. It should help carry you all the way to the front. That's one of those little things that, if done right, will really help with the composition of the drawing. And I think, in my opinion, I think we did it right. Also, because we're using that tan background, which is almost like an orange, the blue is actually a complementary color to that. So I was just like, wow, this is just really gonna work out in all fields, right? And then having it run in front of some characters and then behind other ones, I think looks really cool. It's just like a cool visual thing. That's color dodge, by the way. I never use color dodge, but here we are. The long short of it, the changes I made, I did. I pulled away from the cell shading. I pulled away from all of that because I really wanted to emphasize my best attribute, which is the line art. And those are all the choices I made. And despite it technically having less things going on, I think it just reads way better. No, this is strictly Overwatch 1. Strictly Overwatch 1. Yeah, so one of the reasons I didn't update it prior to this was like, you know, as I do these, like the Pokemon piece, they're always like, what about the next generation? You know, like people always bugging me about what League of Legends. What about the next champion? Once Overwatch 2 was released and I realized, I'm like, I could actually finish this as Overwatch 1 and it'll be a complete piece and I never have to touch it again. I was able to execute on all of the little things that I have thought about changing over the past few years. It's just something so satisfying about executing on all those ideas, and I think we did them well. And I'm really happy to get this one out into circulation in the convention scene, and I'll have it up from the online shop in maybe like 2 weeks once I get the inventory printed and in hand. But yeah, at the end of the day, I didn't want it to look like the old one plus more. I wanted it to be like, all right, look, here's the definitive version. It's basically a brand new drawing. Let's go. All right, everybody, hop into the Discord if you're not already. Thank you for hanging out. Parsley wants to say hi. You go potty? Okay. All right. See you guys. Thank you for hanging out.